Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michel Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michel Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
We want to thank you all for tuning in, and we know we missed a week last week, so we're going to try and catch up with you guys this week. We've got Derrick James, the famed trainer, joining us. Plus, we're going to take a look at Saturday night's PBC on SHOWTIME card featuring Michel Rivera versus Frank Martin. And in this week's toe-to-toe segment, we're going to list our top 5 PBC contenders today. Not champions, not interim champions, not regular champions, but the top 5 PBC contenders today. But first, a little bit of boxing this week. Naoya Inoue becoming the undisputed bantamweight champ with an 11th round stoppage over Paul Butler. Another huge win for Inoue, another huge stoppage for him. Mike, what were your thoughts on the fight?
Well, it wasn't a competitive fight because Butler was more concerned with not getting knocked out than giving himself a chance to actually win the fight. You know, he ran and covered up the entire way. I get that. I wouldn't want to get hurt by Inoue either, but I'm not a professional boxer. The money aside, I'm not sure why Butler even showed up for that fight. Now, that said, Inoue tried to open up Butler pretty much the entire fight, going so far as to put his hands behind his back. I mean, he tried everything, and he ended up with the knockout in the end anyway. So it was a weird fight, but I think you could see. I think you could see once again how good Inoue is. He's a stud.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Butler fought a really, really defensive fight. I mean, wasn't trying to engage at all, and all for naught. At the end of the day,
what was the point of all that? Yeah.
Exactly. So. I don't know if there's a way to beat Inoue. There certainly isn't in that division. Where do you rank him among the world's best today?
Well, I personally have him at number 2, but I think he's somewhere between 1 and 3. I don't know whether he's a perfect fighter. Tim Bradley mentioned something that I was thinking during the fight, that Inoue couldn't keep Butler trapped against the ropes until the very, very end. But that's quibbling, honestly. I think he's as close to a perfect fighter as any active fighter today. I just absolutely love watching that guy fight.
Yeah, I think he's one of the very, very best pound for pound. You take his skills, the eyeball test, couple that with his resume, and I think he's right there at the very top. Who would you like to see him face next?
Well, he says he's moving up to 122, so I think the fight for him is Stephen Fulton, assuming Fulton is interested in that fight. Fulton holds 2 of the 4 belts in that division. He could also fight Akhmadaliev, who has the other 2, but I think Fulton's a much bigger fight and a dangerous one for Inoue because of Fulton's skill set. Otherwise, if he can't make that fight or either one of those fights, I'm not sure who he fights, to be honest. There's not a lot of big name guys there. There aren't any serious threats around there. So I don't know who he fights if it's not one of those 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, Akhmadaliev, I saw a recent photo of him, and he doesn't look like he'll be fighting anytime soon, or at least at that weight based on what I saw, not to mention the countless injuries. I don't have much faith in him. Fulton, I think, is a great, great fight. Great clash of styles. It'd be interesting to see if Inoue's power carries up with him to what would be his 4th division or 5th division.
This would be his 4th division.
4th division. We'll see if it carries that high up, especially against a guy like Fulton, who's a pretty big 122 pounder. He's considering a move up to 126. Hopefully, if he does do that, hopefully an Inoue fight will convince him to come back down. I would absolutely love to see it. And with that, let's jump right into the PBC fight of the week. This Saturday, live from the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, PBC on SHOWTIME returns with 2 young, rising, undefeated lightweights. Michel Rivera taking on Frank Martin in a 12-round battle, a WBA lightweight title eliminator. I mean, this is definitely one of the more unexpected and anticipated fights of 22. The action begins at 10 p.m. Eastern time on SHOWTIME, and we begin here with the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Frank Martin, 16-0, 12 knockouts. Michel Rivera, 24-0 with 14 knockouts. Obviously, they're both undefeated, so they're 5-0 in their last 5. Martin has 4 KOs in those 5. Rivera has 2. Actually, the last 3 opponents for Rivera have gone the distance, which is kind of interesting. Last fight for Martin, Jackson Marinez, TKO 10 in the final round. That was July 9th of this year. For Rivera, it was Jerry Perez, unanimous decision in October, this past October. 75% KO ratio for Martin, 58 for Rivera. 70 rounds of professional experience for Martin, 141 for Rivera, so he's got twice as many rounds. But Frank Martin is actually 3 years older. He's 27 and Rivera's 24. Martin turned pro 2017, Rivera 2016. Martin's a southpaw. Rivera fights from an orthodox stance. Height similar. Martin's 5'8", Rivera 5'9". Rivera's got a reach advantage. 68 inches for Martin, 71 for Rivera. Martin lives in Indianapolis, but he's from Detroit originally. Rivera lives in Miami. He's Dominican.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy because both of these guys are viewed as young, rising stars in a lightweight division, and Rivera has so much more professional experience compared to Martin. What are your thoughts on this fight? I mean, is it too soon for each fighter?
That's almost the reason that I like this fight so much, is that they're taking a risk. They're both taking a risk. A lot of young fighters, they don't want to take this kind of risk because they don't want to blow a chance to get a bigger opportunity, because this is a big opportunity. So this is almost a throwback thing where 2 young undefeated guys are risking everything they have. The winner takes a giant leap forward, and the losers basically, has to rebuild, has to go back to the gym and rebuild. So that just creates real thick drama. And then just the fact that these 2 guys are just so skillful and fun to watch. So for me, it's just a great matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's a great matchup in any year. I was trying to rack my brain, trying to remember, if I could recall a fight like this, back in the days. And obviously there were fights like that, but it was not a common thing. What are Rivera's keys to victory?
You know what? I'm just going to say the same thing for both guys, because I think they're actually similar in a lot of ways. They're both skillful. They're both good athletes. They're both skillful boxers. They both have, pretty good power. I think it's going to come down to who deals with adversity better, first of all, because I think they're both going to experience adversity in this fight, and that's not something that they've seen a lot in their career. I think the heart is going to play a role in this. Yeah, and I just think that. Yeah, I I hate to say this, but like the guy who wants it more, I think that the heart is really going to play a key role in this fight. And I think what we're going to see in this fight is we're going to see who's the better boxer. Right now, it seems like they're both about even. It seems like their power is similar. They have about the same knockout ratio. So I think we're really going to see who's a better fighter in this fight, unless it just comes down to the wire and it's even. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. What about Martin? What are his keys to victory?
I think it's the same thing. I mean, if you wanted me to be a little bit more specific, I mentioned that it almost surprised me when I saw that Rivera is only an inch taller. He seems like he's should have a bigger advantage than that. But the reach advantage, I think, is something. I think Martin's going to have to find a way to get inside. Rivera has a really good jab, as we know, so he's going to have to find a way to get inside his jab. But it's the same thing for both guys, honestly. I think they're going to deal with things that they haven't had to deal with before, and who does that better, I think, could end up winning this fight.
No, I mean, obviously it's such a high stakes bout. So, at this stage of their career, how does a loss here impact these fighters?
I think it depends on how you lose the fight. I think if it's a close fight, fought at a really high level of skill and kind of thing where either guy could win, then maybe it's not that big of a setback. But if one guy is like the clear winner, I think the loser is going to have a problem. I think, like I said before, I think you almost have to step back, go to the gym and sort of like figure out what went wrong and start a rebuilding process. But again, it just depends on how badly you lose the fight.
No, we've had both of their trainers on over the past few weeks. Obviously Derrick James will be on this episode. We had Herman Caicedo, Rivera's trainer, on several episodes back. How important will their respective corners be?
Well, I think that's always important. I mean, obviously these guys do the work before the fight, but I think that's always important. And I think that actually adds an element of, for me, adds an element of excitement to the fight. When you have guys that are trainers that are proven like that, I think it makes it even better. It's just everything is at such a high level. I mean, they don't have a ton of experience, so that's maybe not at the highest level, but the talent's there. They have the backings there. I think just all around, it's a great matchup, including the trainers.
So who are you picking?
Honestly, this was the hardest fight. I think this might be the hardest fight for me to pick of any fight that we've ever had on the podcast. I honestly think this is absolutely a 50-50 fight. On my website, I picked Rivera by a split decision. I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna pick Rivera by a split decision. I think this could end up being a draw.
I like the pick. I agree with you. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I like Frank Martin to outwork Rivera and either score a late round stoppage or win a very, very close decision like you. I mean, a close decision either way would not surprise me. I just lean toward the busier fighter in Martin. I think he's the busier fighter, or at least appears like he's the busiest fighter based on the fights that I've seen. I can tell you these guys are so close. I just think that, to your point, that he's going to want it more.
Yeah, I'm glad that we have a different pick because I need to, if I'm going to have a chance to catch you, I got to go for it. So I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. You are. And I might just stretch my lead. We will soon see. And with that, let's bring in our guest this week. He is one of, if not the finest trainer in the game today. The man behind undisputed super welterweight champion Jermell Charlo, as well as unbeaten unified 3-belt welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. And he will be in the corner of Frank Martin on Saturday night, the one and only Derrick James. Derrick, big fight coming up this weekend. Michel Rivera taking on your guy, Frank Martin. How has camp been for this fight?
Camp's been pretty good. We were already kind of training with somebody else. And then the Michel Rivera opportunity presented itself, and we kind of jumped on it.
You kind of remind me, because I totally forgot about that. There was so much back and forth between Frank and Chris Colbert. Right. His trainer said that he didn't think Chris was ready. From your trainer perspective, how did you see things?
I didn't know he said that, but I think that, he's a good fighter, man. It's like there's a lot of young good fighters out here.
Yeah. And
that's the key element, is that it's just like eventually, everybody has to fight each other or have to, so, that's the nature of the sport.
Right.
We can all be friends. We can all be young guys together, but it's like the key element is to go get the world championship and be a champion. So I think that's really what it's about.
Now, in his last fight, Frank took a big step up, stopping Jackson Marinez earlier this year, but it wasn't easy. What were your thoughts on his performance?
I think he started out a little slow, very slow. I think that he was more apprehensive and more hesitant because I think that he, like a week and a half before the fight, they changed the opposition. So we had been training for somebody else. All of a sudden they changed it to him. Really ain't changed him. They brought it up and we took the fight. It was like, I think he's more apprehensive because, in your mind for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, you've been focused on somebody else. Then when it changes, I think that's kind of like difficult, for him, a young guy, to adjust to that. But I think that's a part of growing. I think that to be a champion or to be a contender, you have to be able to take fights at last minute and change opponents. It doesn't matter. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
Got it. Derrick, give us your thoughts on Rivera as a fighter.
I think he's a good fighter. I think that he does a lot of things well. I think that he fights a lot of different styles. So it's like you basically just have to be prepared for a whole lot of different things because he may bounce on you, may try to stand in front of you and fight you, may work you to the inside, work the body. He's a good counterpuncher. So he does a lot of things well.
What do you think gives Frank the advantage over him?
I just think that really this fight will be so much about fortitude and who really wants it, because it's like two young guys. And I think that Rivera hasn't faced the level of competition that Frank has, but I think that at the same time, I think that this will be a challenge, because I mean, Frank hasn't fought anybody as good as Rivera is. So I believe, bro, it's like it'll all come down to who really wants it and what they have to do to go get it, I believe.
Now, we noticed that Rivera has twice as many professional rounds compared to Martin. Is that a concern for you at all?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think that. I mean, it's like he has depth, and that's good. I mean, I think that being successful in boxing, you have to have some depth. So that's the level of experience that he has, and we just have to focus on our strategy and focus on our game plan and keep moving on, because it's all about really what he wants as a fighter, Frank.
Yeah.
And what he's willing to do to get it. I mean, what is he willing to sacrifice? What is he willing to give up to get it? And what you see now is him sacrificing, him taking a challenge like that, no different than Michel Rivera doing the same to become a champion.
Now, you know, a lot of young rising guys sort of navigate around each other because they don't want to lose before they get that big opportunity. Is this fight as big a risk for both of these guys as it seems? Because it seems like it's a huge risk for them to be taking at this point in their careers.
I think that it is, but I think that at the same time, I think that it's really kind of like a faster way to get to where you want to go. Two guys fight the next best tough guy who's not a champion, but who's rated. And I think that's like, you know, it's like, it's a great risk, because you think about it, man. I mean, if anything happens, I mean, you go to the end of the line. Right. But at the same time, it's like, you know what it takes to get to that level again. So, you know, just keep pushing.
I like that. So it is a big risk, but the payoff is bigger. So
no
I get
doubt.
it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. The titles in the division are currently held by Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney. The winner of this fight is in line for a title shot. Do you think Frank is ready for that step?
You know what? I think that he's ready for that step. I think at the same time, I mean, I think that one or two fights in between that won't hurt him. I mean, it's all about depth. I spoke earlier. It's about depth and just different scenarios and different situations and being able to overcome those. And so, I mean, it wouldn't. I believe that he's ready for the title fight, but at the same time, I mean, I wouldn't complain about having a fight or two in between either.
Got it. So you're accustomed to training veteran world champions, guys like Errol Spence Jr. and Jermell Charlo. Do you take or have to take a different approach when you train a younger rising guy like Frank?
You know, you really don't. I mean, it's like, if you think about it, I've been faced in a situation like that before with Errol. And right when Jermell wasn't champion when I started training him either. So it's like, you really realize that I've been in that space before. So kind of like I know how to kind of function and kind of how to interact with them. It's all about doing the same thing I did with the other guys, which I do all day. Just come in and be my best, do my best to be my best, and at the same time expect the most and the best from them also.
Mike just brought up Jermell Charlo, who obviously has a big fight defending his undisputed title against Tim Tszyu January 28th in Las Vegas. We saw what Jermell did against Brian Castano last summer. Looking back at that win over Castano, what were your thoughts on his performance?
I think it was great. I think that he followed the game plan to the T. And I mean, and those shots we practiced, we worked on. And it was phenomenal because he fought like he really wanted it. And he fought like he really wanted to be the undisputed champion of the world and make history, and that's what he did. So, I mean, Castano was a very tough customer, but I think at the same time, I think that with the decision and how the last fight went, I believe that he was still in that space mentally to where he thought they told him he won. So I don't think he felt like he had to do anything different. And I recognized in the first fight that Jermell was kind of too big and too strong for him. So that's what you saw him succumb to, Jermell's power and the size. and just it's being hit over and over again by Jermell. I think that was the big thing.
Now, Zoo he's sort of a come forward guy. He likes to match, heart for heart, power for power. What's your take on him as a fighter?
I think he's a good fighter. If anybody coming out of any country, right, to get to this level, I believe that they're a good fighter. I think at the same time, I think that, the opposition hasn't been the same, but I think that, so you may think more highly of yourself than is warranted at this particular point. But I think that to be able to perform on this level, you have to believe you're the best, or you have to believe that you can perform and not be, not be shut down and shut out. So I think that you have to believe it. And with him, that's what he believes, obviously. He believes that he's the guy and he's going to come in there and take it.
Love it. Errol Spence, we assume, is close to announcing his next fight. Fans were expecting a fight with Terrence Crawford, but, things fell through. You had a unique perspective on negotiations. Why do you think that fight didn't happen?
I mean, I don't really know, man. I just like, it's for me, I think it's in the past now. I think that, I don't know. I can't call it. I think that he chose to do something else. And, I guess he felt like that was the best option for himself in his career.
Some people have questioned whether he really wants the fight, that if he really wanted the fight, that it would happen. I don't think fighters are generally afraid of other fighters, but what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that he really wants to fight. Also, I think that he wants to fight. I just think that he probably felt like, hey, if I'm gonna go into this fight, we need a fight to get me going, right?
Do you think that fight's still possible for 2023?
Anything is possible. I think that he's a phenomenal fighter. He's very accomplished. He's probably the most accomplished fighter that's fighting right now. Undisputed champ, lightweight champ, welterweight champ. But I like him as a fighter, and I think that but it's the negotiations are different.
You mentioned he's a phenomenal fighter. We just last Saturday he stopped David Avedissian. I don't know if you got a chance to see that fight. I'd like to get your thoughts on it if you did see it. But what are your thoughts on him overall as a fighter?
I think he's a great fighter. I think he's been very successful. I think that his team as a whole has been. See, the thing about it, when people understand like how hard it is to continue to be successful, right? And so I think he's been able to do that, man. That's great because, it's hard to keep winning. It's hard to just keep being successful, keep winning. And so he's been able to do that. So him and his team, I applaud him for that.
Without giving too much away, why does Errol beat Crawford if they do end up fighting each other?
I just think it's just like, I think it's technique and it's a skill set. And what's funny about it is the skill set that people don't see. That's why what they think they don't see is because they don't have the educated eyes to see it. So I think that's what it really is. I think Crawford's a great fighter. I think at the same time, Errol Spence is, he's a phenomenal fighter. He's a big puncher, and Crawford can punch also. So it's like, but I think that, I know my guy, he's better at what he does.
It's a great fight. Great fight, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it'll be a good fight. No doubt.
Yeah. There's been a lot of chatter about Errol fighting Keith Thurman. What are your thoughts on Keith Thurman today as a fighter?
I think he's a good fighter, man. He's like, he's been tough. He's been champion for a while. He lost to Pacquiao. But if you think about it, at the end of that fight, he was coming on. He had Pacquiao on the rope. So it's like he started out a little slow. He got dropped, I think the first and second round. But, he picked it up. And so he still has something. Then he came back and he fought, forget the other kid's name, but from San Antonio. He fought him. So it's like
Barrios.
Mario Barrios. So it's like, hey, man, listen. He fought. He's a fighter. He's tough and he's coming to fight. So, I think that's the big deal.
Do you think that Keith could be Errol's most dangerous fight thus far?
I I think, possibly, but you never know. I think that once you get in there, on paper, he could be up there with, I think could be Kell Brook on paper. It could be, like Ugas on paper. You know what I mean? So it just depends on the level of competition that they both have been facing is like top of the top. So, it's like, it only pushes them to be better.
Yeah. Now I gotta ask you this: we recently saw the former unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua in your gym down there in Texas, which is a big difference from being in London. It seemed to come out of nowhere. What was that all about? Because no one reported. Like, it just came out of nowhere.
And it was just a visit. He made a visit to Dallas. I think that he was doing some stuff here, and he wanted to come to the gym and work out. So it was like, and nothing more into that. I think it was just a visit. You know what I'm saying? And I had never met him before. We had never met him before, whatever. So, he hit me up. He's a good, very nice, very genuine guy. So yeah. And
Yeah,
he's a big, great. He's a big, like. He's a big, gracious, thankful guy, so yeah.
I don't know how closely you followed his career. I assume you have. Do you think that he could get back to the top of the sport after what he's been through?
Because I thought about this, right? First of all, the answer is yes. But think about this. So in the amateurs, he had 35 fights, right? And he wins the Olympic gold medal. 35 fights. As a pro, he's had 28 fights. So as a whole, that's 63 fights.
Good point.
So he's still an amateur boxer.
Mm.
So if you think about it, he's still an amateur boxer. You get what I'm saying? So what you see is a guy who was put on the fast track as a professional because of everything he brought to the table. His size, his athleticism, his looks. And it was almost like, okay, we see something. So, it's like, and he was able to grow in fame, grow in popularity. And the bigger fights, he's beating guys and beating guys. But what happens is, what you can't do is you can't go backwards. So what I mean by that is all those years of, like using the skills, the size and its power to knock these guys out, right? It's like the skill set. They didn't try to maximize the skill set. You know what I mean? So it's like that's what we saw. Like when he faced guys who had better boxing skills or longer boxing careers, like Usyk and Andy Ruiz. And you see guys like that, right? And you say, man. And they say, well, I see people, he doesn't have it. But no, you don't know. He's an amateur, like, with 63 bouts, that's an amateur boxer.
Yeah.
Performing on the highest level. See what I'm saying? His 16th to 17th pro fight, he fought for the world title. So that's 52 fights. So think about that. Who can fight for the heavyweight championship in 52 fights?
Yeah.
In their whole lifetime, whole career.
Yeah. A lot of guys have 50 amateur fights before they're 15.
That's right. Most of them do.
Yeah.
They start about 8 years old, going age, from 8. So by the time they're 15, you've been fighting for 7 years. You're fighting more than 10 times a year. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you think about it. So what he did in that length of time is amazing. So can he be a good fighter? Yeah. Can he get back to the top? Yeah, I know without a doubt he can.
Mm.
He just has to make the right choices at this point in his career, because this is at the point where everything matters. Everything, matters the most. So he just got to be intelligent with the way he moves from this point on.
Interesting. So you mentioned that it was just a visit. Is there any chance that you could end up working with Joshua?
You never know, man. You never know. I mean, it's like I always liked him as a fighter because I saw something in him. Right? I saw he had glimpses of like greatness, right? You just see, like, this guy could be great. And he went on to be great with what he had, right? But with getting just a little bit more depth, and you never know what he can do, what he can be. So, I mean, but, you never know, man.
Now, Derrick, I feel like I ask you this every year, but, once again, you're up for Trainer of the Year. In your opinion, do you feel you're deserving of that award?
I do feel like that, but I think that it's up to, it's just subjective. It's up to the people who make the decisions. I mean, it's up to those other people who, the boxing writers, to say, well, and you think about everybody that they chose before me are kind of like not even whatever. I mean, like Teofimo Father, that year.
Yeah.
Come on. It was like he hadn't won a fight since, maybe one, but you know what I'm saying? So it's like, then you got, so listen, man, it's like, and I'm not shooting at anybody for what they did or what they won. I'm just saying that, who knows? I mean, I would think that I would be, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it, because you just never know. I mean, they can always find somebody.
Right. All right, you never know. It's last question for you. I mean, look, you've got an undisputed world champion. You've got a guy with 3 belts, undefeated, and one of the better young 135 pounders in the game. You've accomplished so much as a trainer. What keeps you motivated?
Well, I want to wait. Let me go back to just what you said, because you were saying. So think about this. For the last 7 years, I've had a world champ. For the last 6 years, I had 2 world champs. For the last 3 years, I've been the only trainer in the world with 2 unified champs.
Yeah. For
the last 8 to 10 months, I've been the only trainer in the world with 1 undisputed and 1 unified champ. So, all of those things I just said mean nothing. Because when I had 2 unified 2 champions, they still didn't give it to me or whatever. But what keeps me motivated is helping fighters, helping the kids, helping guys. I think that, helping, if I could, help fighters get to be great. And really, boxing is just like my thing. Really, my thing is my community. So it's like, you give me more visibility. So you get more visibility, you can get more things done. Right. In the community. So that's really what the boxing helps me do. So that keeps me motivated. So the boxing helps me be more visible in the community, because it's like, you can get more things done. So, yeah.
Man, well, we love you. The fact that you stay motivated, that you're working with all of these guys. I think you've had a tremendous year, a tremendous career. Obviously, Derrick, we want to thank you for coming on. We know you got a lot going on, big fight next weekend. So wishing you all the best, of course, and we look forward to having you on afterward.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm hard-pressed to find a flaw.
I believe he can be a champion.
2 of boxing's brightest young fighters.
What a shot!
Undefeated Michel Rivera.
Michel rings the bell!
Unbeaten Frank the Ghost Martin.
Down again! And the fight is over!
Who will make a statement in one of boxing's deepest divisions? Michel Rivera versus Frank Martin. Saturday, December 17th. Live on Showtime.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. And this week, the topic is the top 5 PBC contenders today. And when we say contenders, we mean contenders. We're not talking about world champions. We're not talking about interim champions. We're not talking about regular champions. We are talking about the top 5 PBC contenders today. We'll go in ascending order, of course. So, Mike, floor is yours.
Real quick, wanted to preface this by saying this wasn't really that easy because there's just so many good fighters. I just picked the 5 guys that I felt who were strongest right now. And also, I personally didn't consider, I think neither of us considered Martin Rivera or Tinsu, because they have fights coming up. They can prove in the ring that they belong on this list. So we basically just set them aside for the purposes of this exercise. So my number 5 is Caleb Plant. I don't know whether I would have included Plant on this list before his last fight. His best win was when he took the title from Jose Uzcategui, and then after a few defenses, he was knocked out by Canelo Alvarez. I wondered whether, we'd seen the best of him at that point. And then he turned in that spectacular one-punch knockout of Anthony Durrell in his last fight. I think he took a giant step forward with that performance. And he sort of showed me that he still has a lot in the tank. So I still think David Benavidez beats him, but I have more respect for him than I ever did.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love Caleb Plant, definitely one of the top 5 PBC contenders today, and therefore I will be discussing him a little bit later. My number 5 is Leo Santa Cruz. Really one of the best fighters of the modern era. A 4-division world champion. Came back this year, soundly beat Keenan Carbajal to show that he was still one of the better fighters in the sport. And I think he deserves it based on that and based upon his legacy. There's nothing this man can't do in the ring. He can box, he can brawl, and he's proven it at the highest level.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said about Leo. Is a great person on top of everything else. Yeah, what he's accomplished is just incredible. He's arguably a Hall of Famer. I guess I didn't include him because I just want to have a better feel for what he's got after that knockout against Davis. I mean, that's one of the most brutal knockouts in recent memory. I just want to see a little bit more of him before I put him on a list like this. But I have undying respect for Leo Santa Cruz, and he's fun to watch on top of everything else. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's go to number 4. I'll kick this one off. My number 4 is none other than Danny Swift Garcia. I mean, look, we saw this guy move up to 154 pounds earlier this year against Jose Benavidez Jr. and just put on a masterful performance, outclassing Benavidez Jr. We know what he's accomplished at 147, won a world title there, and then, of course, was the unified champion at 140. One of the better resumes at 140 than we've seen in recent years, perhaps the best resume at 140 since Timothy Bradley. In my opinion, maybe even better than Bradley's. Who knows? I mean, he just had an unbelievable run at 140, and based on his performance this year against Benavidez Jr., he still got it.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of Danny Garcia when did he turn pro? I mean, when did he become an elite fighter? Over a decade ago. So, yeah, I've been a proponent for a long, long time. I always described him, if I had to pick one word, I always described him as a winner. He just always found ways to win fights.
Yeah.
I guess he's not on my list, and I guess maybe the reason is that I'm not 100% convinced about what he's going to do at this weight. Like, as you said, he started at a much lower weight. Now he's fighting much bigger guys. I think he's still a really good fighter.
Yeah.
But again, he's like another guy. I want to see what he could do at the weight.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you have at number 4?
So my number 4 is Brian Castaño. Castaño's coming off the loss to Jermell Charlo, but I think he demonstrated how good he is in 2 fights against the pound for pounder. They fought to a draw in the first fight, which I thought it was a really, really close fight. I don't think a draw was outrageous by any means. And then he lost by stoppage in the rematch. He's skillful. He's always super fit, and he has that swarming style that could give anybody problems, as we saw in those fights. Honestly, he might be able to beat any 154-pounder not named Charlo.
Yeah, you know what? He was on my short list for this category. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound. However, the reason why I left him off is because that was such a brutal fight against Jermell Charlo, resounding defeat.
Good point.
I wonder what he's got left. I really do. I'm looking forward to seeing him get back in the ring, but a lot of fighters haven't been the same after they fought Jermell Charlo, and
kind of the same as Santa Cruz and Gervonta Davis. So I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and that may be the case. I mean, who knows? As it relates to Santa Cruz, we'll see. Let's go to number 3. Who you got?
My number 3 is Deontay Wilder. Wilder is, at worst, I think he's the 3rd best heavyweight in the world, perhaps number 2. We'll see how things play out. He lost those 2 fights to Fury, but he gave the champion absolute hell in that last fight, which was fight of the year. And we have to remember, And I think this is key. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have him on this list is Wilder's a small heavyweight in terms of his weight. Imagine how dominating he'd be if he were a cruiserweight. And I think he could probably make 200 pounds if he wanted to. It absolutely would not be fair to the other cruiserweights. I'm not sure anybody would even fight him. So if pound for pound is a factor here at all, I think he definitely belongs on this list.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I will discuss Deontay Wilder in a little bit. My number 3 is Keith Thurman, the former unified welterweight champion. Hasn't fought as much recently, but as Derrick James mentioned, that Manny Pacquiao fight, I thought if it was a 50-rounder, Thurman would have won. That's how good he looked to me. And came back against Mario Barrios, won a clear, wide decision over Barrios. Keep in mind, that was with 10-ounce gloves. He hurt Barrios several times with those 10-ounce gloves, which were requested by Barrios. And who knows, if he was wearing the welterweight 8-ounce gloves, I wouldn't have been surprised if he got Barrios out of there early. I mean, he hurt him as early as the 4th round. Keith Thurman, still great athleticism, great power, great ring know-how. One of the most dangerous fighters in the 147-pound division.
Well, the last thing you said is for sure 100% true. One of the most dangerous guys in the division, no doubt. I've also been a big fan of Thurman for the reasons that you've stated. I guess the reason that he didn't make this list is I'm still not just 100% sure what he has left in terms of, compared to the guy he used to be. He had those injuries, like one injury after another. The poor guy just really ate away at his career. Did look good. Yeah. Did look good against Pacquiao. Looks pretty good the last couple of times we've seen him. But I just want to see a little bit more of him before I make a judgment. But I do think he's a legitimate opponent for anybody. Any of the top guys.
Absolutely, sure. Absolutely. What you got for your? Where are we at? Number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2. Should I go or should you go? I'll go. Yeah, my number 2 is Caleb Sweet Hands Plant. Truly one of the better pure boxers in the game. He showed a new dimension in his last fight in October when he flattened Anthony Durrell with a single left hook in the 9th round. And I was just thinking to myself, well, you got a guy who can box, move, who's got a great ring IQ, a great corner, and then you mix in now him sitting on his punches and standing in the eye of the storm with his slipperiness. He's going to surprise a lot of people. Caleb Plant, I think the best may be yet to come for him.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Maybe the only thing I can add to that is I know that Anthony Durrell is probably right at the end of his career. Has he said he's going to retire? He'll probably retire. I don't know. At any rate, but the guy that I saw fighting Plant still had a lot of fight left in him. That guy, I don't even think he's declined significantly based on what I saw. And look what Plant did to him. So that was some serious stuff that Plant served up in that fight. I was just really opened my eyes more than to Plant than they had been before.
Yeah, opened a lot of eyes up. What do you got for number 2?
So I'm sort of rolling the dice on this one. It's the guy I've admired for a long time, Gary Russell Jr. People tend to forget about Russell. He was one of maybe the longest reigning champions when he lost his title to Mark Magsayo last January. That was mostly because of a shoulder injury, on which he's had surgery, by the way. I have no reason to believe he can't still fight at a really high level, assuming the injury is fully healed. I should add that wasn't clear as recently as August. I'm not sure what the status of it is, but a healthy Gary Russell Jr. with his speed and his skill set and his experience is still one of the very best fighters in the world. So maybe part of this is just hoping he gets back to form, but if he does, look out. The guy's still one of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought him up because he was also on my short list, did not make the cut for me. But what a fighter Gary Russell Jr. is. I'm hopeful that he returns in 2023. I'd like to see him fight more than once in 2023 and get right back in the mix at 126, 130, 135. I think he'd be great in any of those divisions. And there are plenty of fights out there for him. So hopefully we see him soon. I hear he's back in the gym training, which is a good sign. So let's get back in there, Gary. Your fans are waiting. We cannot wait to see you in the ring again. And I have no doubt that if it's, a healthy Gary Russell Jr. can certainly become a world champion once more. Let's go to number 1. I'll kick this one off since you already mentioned it. My number 1 is the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder. To me, in that heavyweight division, he's got the best shot to become world champion again. Looking at my list of contenders, he is not that far off. And with that dynamite right hand and that incredible world-class athleticism, all it takes is 2 seconds for him, and he can walk away with the strap around his waist. We saw what he did in his first title reign, 10 title defenses over 5-6 years. Extremely impressive, resilient, great chin, speed, power, movement. And I think now, entering his third camp with Malik Scott, we're going to see even more wrinkles in his game and a dangerous fighter in his next bout.
So my this was the easiest part of this. My number one could not have been easier. Jaron Ennis. I like when Ennis works his way into a toe-to-toe because I get to rave about him, which will never get old for me. As I've said in the past, I think he's this generation's Roy Jones Jr., a guy with off-the-charts quickness, athletic ability, and punching power. I mean, that combination is not very common. That's something that Inoue has. He might be the best fighter pound for pound right now, but he hasn't proved it yet. We have to wait and see how he does against next level opposition, which is coming soon. I'll be surprised if he loses a fight while he's still in his prime or near his prime. And you named the opponent. It doesn't matter. I think this guy's that good.
Yeah, no question. I mean, one of the better, if not the best, rising young star in the sport today, but he's got to prove it. That's probably the reason why he's not on my list, is the other guys are a bit more proven. But it wouldn't surprise me if he not only proved himself, but proved himself to be the best in the game. I mean, that's how good this guy's tools are. He's a 5-tool player. If he was a baseball player, he could box, could bang. He's got the size, he's got the discipline, the ring IQ, the power, the speed, the athleticism, the pizzazz, like a Roy Jones. It looks like he has got it all. We just need to see this, like any newfangled thing that you get, whether it be a new car or whatever. We just want to see it tested, and hopefully we see that in 2023. That is going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Derrick James for joining us, and of course we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Speaking of tuning in, don't forget Saturday night, Frank Martin, Michel Rivera, one of the best matchups of the year at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, live on Showtime beginning at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't want to miss it, and we'll break that down and much more next week right here on the PBC Podcast.